Thank you, Senator Peters. Senator Hawley, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks to both of you for being here. General McKenzie, if I could start with you. You directed U.S. Army Central to investigate the events surrounding the Abbey Gate bombing on August 26, 2021. Is that correct?
Senator, that is correct.
And they issued, in fact, a report. Is that correct?
Senator, they did.
Totaling about, I think, 2,000 pages. You said in a letter to the Secretary, I have reviewed the investigation completed at my direction by U.S. Army Central and concur with and endorse the findings, end quote. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And do you stand by that, General?
I do.
Let's talk about some of the findings if we could. This committee has been told repeatedly, that the collapse of the Afghan security forces on such a rapid timetable couldn't be predicted. For example, General Miller testified to this committee, I'm going to quote him now, quote, there was nothing I or anyone else saw, end quote, that suggested the rapid collapse of Afghan security forces on the timetable that they did collapse. The CENTCOM report that you ordered, I think, to put it gently, casts some doubt on that. For example, it says General Miller, that's the commander on the ground, of course, as you know, General Miller was extremely worried from May 2nd onward about the rapid collapse of the security forces, especially as he was seeing key districts fall. Of course, General Miller also has testified to this committee that he warned you, General Milley, and Secretary Austin as early as March or April about the rapid collapse of the security forces. The report also says, quote, Rear Admiral Vasely provided assessments weeks prior to the fall of the Afghan government that the trajectory of Afghanistan was in a downward spiral and likely not recoverable, end quote. General, can you confirm for us, based on the findings in the report, that the administration was in fact warned that Afghan security forces and the government could collapse rapidly after we left? And by we, I mean our military forces who evacuated fully in July.
Senator, I'll answer that, but first I'd like to very briefly just talk about the Abbey Gate investigation. That was a narrowly scoped investigation to determine what happened at Abbey Gate. The quotations you're drawing from testimony inside it were not part of the formal final findings of the investigation. That doesn't mean they're accurate or inaccurate. They're just simply not.
They're in the report, though, General, correct?
There are 14,000 pages in the report involving a lot of testimony from a lot of people, and I'm sure they're in the report. However, they're not the reason the report was created, and that they were not in the formal final findings of the report, which was focused on the nature of the attack at Abbey Gate. Now, having said that, as early as, and I've testified here earlier today and in the past, as early as the fall of 2020, my recommendation was that not my recommendation, but my view was that if you go below 4,500 in Afghanistan, that would be a mistake, put us on a slope that we would not be able to recover from. And then also in the spring of 2021, General Miller and I were both agreed that 2,500 was a number that we could maintain in Afghanistan. That's not ultimately the number that was selected, but we had the opportunity, a full and free airing of our views, which I think is all any commander can ask. Another decision was made, which is the way the process is supposed to work.
Fair enough. Fair enough. You did, in fact, it sounds like to me, and the report certainly indicates that the administration was warned and that you were ignored. This investigation contains other remarkable testimony about the State Department and the White House's disengagement. Let me just go through a little bit of that. Multiple sources said, for the record, for the testimony, that the State Department refused even to talk about a civilian evacuation until it was too late, that they delayed efforts to start evacuating Americans. For example, Brigadier General Sullivan told investigators, and I'm going to quote him now, quote, trying to get the embassy to discuss non-combatant evacuation operations was like pulling teeth until early August. He goes on to say the embassy didn't fully participate in evacuation planning until a week prior to the fall of Kabul. Another Marine said that as a result of the State Department's intransigence, quote, we essentially planned the evacuation in about 5 days, end quote. General, is it fair to say the State Department's delays undermine the broader evacuation effort?
I think the Department of State always tries to find a solution to remain engaged in a country. It's alien to their nature to cut and run. They prefer to not do that. I would tell you that we were involved in a lot of discussions back and forth with the State Department beginning in the spring of that year, and even earlier, in fact, as we looked at possible contingencies for departure.
So, yeah, you said that you were engaged in discussions with the State Department. What the report shows is that the State Department refused, and frankly the White House refused to engage until the very last minute. For example, this is the testimony again of Rear Admiral Vasely. On the morning of August 14th, he says The ambassador there in Kabul finally got a call from the National Security Advisor Sullivan and Secretary Blinken, who told him, the ambassador, we needed to move. We had heard the night before that they were looking at a 2-week plan to get 250 personnel, U.S. personnel, to H-Kaya and get them out by 31 August. I, Vasely, told him he didn't have 2 weeks, that he only had 24 to 48 hours. Vasely goes on, I'd like to know where this level of urgency to get these people in before August 15th was before, because it didn't exist until it became a crisis. I could go on and on here, General. You're right, there are thousands of pages here, and I want to thank you for ordering this investigation. I think that was the right thing to do. I wish this committee would show some interest in it. My staff and I have been through all of it that is publicly available. It is astounding, frankly. So thank you for ordering it. Thank you for what you were able to uncover. I again call on this committee to have hearings on this report, which is now in the public domain, much of it, and that frankly contains shocking information about this administration's total failure to plan for the collapse of the Afghan security forces, despite being warned about it for months upon months, and to withdraw American civilians in time before the tragedy at Abbey Gate, which led to the death of 13 service members. I've got more questions for you for the record. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, as a member of the Intelligence Committee, I can assure the Senator that there were not months and months of warning of imminent collapse. That is categorically untrue, and I wish the Senator would get off of this hobby horse.
May I
Gentlemen,
open session?
gentlemen, I will now recognize.
But, Mr. Chairman, the Senator just invoked me. Has the Senator read the 2,000-plus pages report? I'd like to know.
Senator Hawley?
Would you
Senator
like
Hawley,
to read it, Senator
your
King?
time's expired.
Do you have any interest in it?
Senator Hawley, your time's
Do
expired.
you doubt
Senator,
what I'm quoting? Are you saying that
Senator,
I'm misquoting this evidence? Before the Senator impugns my integrity in an open session, I'd like him to at least do me the courtesy of reading the material that I'm quoting and engage with it.
I'd be glad to do so.
Senator Sullivan, please.